Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So, well, I prepared a few sources for you. I want to look first at the first source because it's from Pirkei Avot, ethics of the fathers, or teachings of the fathers, or sayings of the fathers, which is in the Mishnah, and it contains different sort of teachings and aphorisms about life, and I find this teaching a little bit puzzling. Okay, it says there are 4 types of character in human beings. One that says, mine is mine and yours is yours. It always sounds better in Hebrew. Sheli, sheli, v'shelcha, shelcha. Right? Mine is mine, yours is yours. And it says this is Medah Beinonit, like average or intermediate or median. But Yesh Omrim Zo Midat Sdom. There are those who say that this is the characteristic of Sodom. Okay, and I have to say, the first time I read this, it's pretty shocking, right? Because what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours, right? I mean, right? What's so terrible about that, right? Mine is mine, yours is yours. It's not so terrible, right?
The people don't have anything, then you're keeping your wealth and they're keeping nothing, kind of like our government's going to be.
Right. If you have wealth and your neighbor has nothing, then what's mine is mine and yours is yours means that they starve, right? So, but, I don't know. I guess this is what they mean by privilege, right? I don't really know any poor people. I encounter poor people if I'm, going to the grocery store and there's somebody who can't, afford, or they're asking for money. But I don't know any poor people because I live in a middle-class neighborhood, right? So what's mine is mine and yours is yours seemed to me, at first glance, entirely reasonable, right? And then there are 3 others, right? What's mine is yours and yours is mine. That is an am haaretz, right? An unlearned person, okay? So Pirkei Avot would not have been very fond of socialism, right? Democratic or otherwise, because that is exactly what's mine is mine and what's yours is. No, right? That's socialism. What's mine is yours and what's yours is mine, right? That's socialism. One that says what's mine is yours and what's yours is yours, right? This is a Hasid, a pious person, but what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine, that's a wicked person, okay? But I don't want to get bogged down in the characteristic. The point is to simply Midat Sdom, the characteristic of Sdom, the characteristic of the people of Sodom. And as I said in the Torah introduction, right, what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours. And that's, according to the rabbinic sources, that's what they live by, right? And if what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours, then somebody getting something for nothing is a violation of the basic norm of that society, which is why they banned giving food to poor people, right? And they didn't even have to get a midnight ruling to do that. They just did it. So that's Midat Sdom. But then in the legal sources, we come across this fascinating concept, Kofin Oto al Midat Sdom. Okay, we force him concerning Midat Stone. In other words, we force him not to act according to Midat Stone, according to the characteristic of stone. Okay, and it's expressed in a few sources. So, and these are chronological, okay? So the Mishnah codified the 2nd century of the Common Era. Bava Batra, Talmudic tractate, codified 500, 600 of the Common Era. Rambam, Maimonides, Hilchot Shchenim, the laws of neighbors, around 900 years ago. And the Shulchan Aruch is about 300 years ago or so, okay? But they all have the same ruling, okay? So in Bava Batra, it says, certain person bought land along the boundary of his father's property, right? So he buys land, the land is next to his father's land, then the father dies, right? And in Jewish law, inheritance is split equally among the sons, right? So now the father's died and they're splitting the land, and the one who bought land next to the father's land says, give me my portion along my boundary, right? Why? Because makes more sense, right? Combining properties, right? So you know, I own land here, and Dad's land is here, and there are 3 of us. We each get a third. I want the third next to the land I already own. What? Seems like a reasonable request. Seems like a reasonable request, but the key word is request, right? Because how is it divided? It's divided by lottery. Okay, so let's say I'm one of the brothers, and I don't like my brother. I had a falling out with my brother, right? Or I just want to be a jerk, and the lottery assigned me the land, right, next to the land that you own. And you say, well, can we switch? No, it's a reasonable request, but it's a request, right? And so you have the legal right to be a jerk. You do. And you may not have the moral or ethical right, but you have the legal right to be a jerk. And that's why, we have easements, right? And that's why easements become written in the deed, right? Because I'm a good guy, I'll let you walk through, but, I died and my kid is not a good guy. Or I decide one day I don't want to be a good guy anymore, so no. So that's why you have an easement, right? So, but Rabbah says, this is the halacha, kofin oto al midat sdom. Okay, we force him not to act like the inhabitants of Sodom. And therefore, the court will override the rights of the other brothers and give him the land next to the land he already owns, provided that all the parcels are of equal value. Okay? Which not necessarily equal size, equal value, right? I mean, they would call in you and they'd say, Brian, you figure out, you divide this up into 3 parcels of equal value. Okay? So now we get to Maimonides, right? And here Maimonides actually tightens it up a little bit. And he says, right, he says, right, I want my share to be next to the part I already own, and if they're all of equal quality, then it would be midat stone for the others to refuse. You have to do that. But if they're not equal quality, then you can't force the other, right? I mean, like sometimes I guess, right, so there's two brothers, right? Make it easier, right? You can't really divide the land into two parcels of equal value unless there's a stream or something like that. And you can't, right, there's no way to divide the parcels so that the stream runs through both parcels, right? So, but if that brother says, okay, you know what? I'll take the parcel of lesser value so that I can combine it with, then they have to let him do it, right? But if he's not willing to take the parcel of lesser value, and he says, no, lottery, and however it comes out, that's fine. Okay, but if he's willing to take the parcel of lesser value, then the other brother can't just be a jerk for the sake of being a jerk, right? And similarly, right, if Shulchan Aruch says they, it's as long as they're of equal value, then we are required to let a person combine with land he already owns, and if not, Hofino Toal Midat Stone, right? We force him not to act with the characteristics of Sodom. And now I came across an interesting source. There's this website called Dinim Online. And this is actually from 2012, so lest you think, that I went and cherry-picked something, more recent to refer to certain individuals or situations. I did not. Okay, this is from 2012 from a Haredi-leaning website called Dinim Online. Dinim means laws. Okay, and Rabbi Yoshua Fever talks about what I said, right? What's mine is mine and what's yours is a negative character trait, right? But here, what the sources generally say is that they actually made it a law. They made it a law, like I said about that young girl, right? It is illegal to give somebody something for nothing because we strongly believe what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours, okay? We have all read Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, and we have decided that that book is an excellent guide to life, and we have made The Fountainhead, I'm being a little anachronistic here, right? Or Atlas Shrugged, right? But we have made that type of extreme libertarianism the basis of our society. It is wrong for somebody to get something for nothing. Okay, and so here's what Rabbi Fever says. Sodom, however, brought this negative trait to altogether different proportions. In Sodom, it evolved from being an individual disposition into a way of life, an idea that regulated every aspect of government and society. The wickedness of Sodom was not the individual disposition to self-interest, right? And I think that that's so, right? I mean, in other words, we talked about it being a reasonable request. And it's a request, but it's not a demand, right? And you'd be a jerk to decline the request, right? But you have a legal right to be a jerk in most legal systems, but not in halakha, okay? But here, not only would they say, you have a legal right to be a jerk, but in fact, you must be a jerk. It is legally required to be a jerk, right? Because otherwise, somebody's getting something for nothing. And we can't have that, right? So if it's an individual disposition, all right, that's not great, but, right, I mean, who here knows at least one jerk? Right? Okay, that doesn't destroy the society, right? It's not great, but it doesn't destroy the society. But when it becomes, as Rabbi Pfeffer said, it evolved from being an individual disposition into a way of life, an idea that regulated every aspect of government and society. Right? The wickedness of Sodom was not the individual disposition to self-interest, but its wholesale institutionalization pervading the parliament, the judiciary, and every aspect of general society. And thus they created a chesed-free society, right? Chesed is kindness, really, right? It means like, what is a gemach? A gemach, gimilut chasadim, it's a society that, when they have gemachs for everything in the Orthodox world, okay, you need a walker, there's a gemach. They'll either provide you with a walker or lend you one for as long as you want. I mean, we have a gemach in our congregation, it's called D, right? But they have like formalized gemach for everything, right? Your daughter's getting married, you can't afford a wedding dress, the wedding dress gemach, okay? Your daughter's getting married and you can't, you're poor, so you're gonna cook all the food yourself, but you don't have the serving utensils. There's a gemach for that, right? There's an act for that. There's a gemach for that. There's a gemach for everything, and the word is chesed, right? But in Sodom, chesed is forbidden, right? By expelling kindness from their midst for fear of having to share their bounty. If poor people get food, my taxes might go up. If people can buy medical insurance at a reasonable rate, my taxes might go up. Not only do I not like it, it's contrary to the norms of our society. They shredded the fabric that a good society is made of. And this brought them to commit every evil, including torture, murder, and even idolatry. Without a social structure that commends and rewards interpersonal relationship, their rampant individualism brought them to every ill under the sun until they lost their right to existence, right? And that is why God felt that society had to be destroyed, because it was so evil that it had made kindness and compassion not merely optional, but actually illegal. And that is a society that is going to, become just worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until it's unlivable and indeed loses its right of existence. So that's Kehilat Shalom. And hopefully we will not, as a society, go in that direction, and certainly as individuals, we should not go in that direction.
Rabbi, I just
Yeah.
wanted to add that Rabbi Suriel Zichron Levacha said that besides the idea of Zoh Midat Stom, he said the difference between Midah Benonit and Zohi Midat Stom is that when it's Yish Omrim, when it's a society that says that, exactly like you just explained, is the idea of Midat Sdom, that it could be normal for some people to say Shali, Shali, Shalach, Shalach, but when it's Yesh Omrim, when it's the law, that is the problem. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi Goldman. Sort of, I don't know, emphasize that one of his teachers taught that it was not like people have that characteristic, okay? People have that characteristic in that Benoni, but the Yesh Omrim means that it becomes institutionalized. And when it becomes institutionalized, that's when you have a society that's really off the rails. Okay. So.